Thanks, Alexis. Okay, hello and welcome. I am Dr. Alexis, and I am a doctor of Chinese medicine and a trance channel, as you will see here shortly. I channel a being named Simon. I joke that I am a monogamous channel. I have the ability to channel with other beings. I kind of just stay in my lane. I've done a lot of mediumship and other channeling, and my first experience channeling was with Jesus, which is a very cool experience. Simon and I have been working together in this lifetime 9 years, and we do this sort of work, and it actually, do you want to hear the story of how it started? I think some of you have heard it before, but we'll tell you again. But before we do that, I want to say thank you for being here. I really appreciate you coming. I love that we're this nice cozy group. It's a really beautiful experience to have that. And we were speaking earlier about how everyone who comes on any given day is always here on purpose, and like our conglomeration of energies is always divine and amazing. I do record. Hello, YouTube. We keep you all off camera, and we're only using first names, so we're keeping it. And we actually will give you numbers, and the reason we do numbers is I typically will have my best friend Andy, who does the facilitation for me, but she is unfortunately not here today due to some back pain. And so what we'll do is we'll do numbers. And the way that will work is your only job is to remember your number, and Simon will call a number, and then you give your question, whatever thought that you have. If you don't have a fully formed question, you can just ask for a general message, and he will likely dialogue with you a little bit. And if he dialogues with you, then just do the back and forth, and when he's feeling complete, he'll ask you if you're complete, and you can say yes, and then he'll say, okay, we may, he'll call the next person likely. We don't do it like that too often, but we figured that's the way that it would work best, so I don't have to go in and out, and we can kind of make it work on our own. So now I'll tell you the story. So this was about 9 years ago, and I was working as an acupuncturist in a busy practice, and I was doing a lot of learning and expanding, and I've always been really sensitive. I've always been aware of energies. I had precognitive dreams from the time I was little tiny. I grew up in a very spiritual household. My father is a practitioner of Afro-Cuban religion called Santeria. So there was a lot of spirituality. There was a lot of magic. It was normal. Things were real. And in my late 20s, early 30s, it was like, okay, I know these abilities, I know these things, let's become skilled, because I had been doing mediumship and had taken courses, and I decided to really dive into shamanism. And so I was learning a lot of things, and when I started really digging deep, the name Simon started coming up. Simon. I mean, I remember even driving home from dropping my kids off at school, and it was on a repeat. It was on a loop. It's like, okay. And so when you do shamanistic work, a lot of times you work with beings or animal helpers. And so every time I would meet a new animal helper, I would ask, are you Simon? And it was not Simon. And one day I was given a really simple task of discerning some energies, and I had some trouble doing so. I couldn't do this activity, and which was unusual for me. I typically could do them with ease, and I stopped, and what we did was we did a fear release exercise and of dialoguing with fear. And in dialoguing with fear, I asked, what do I need? And what came up was Simon. Wow. So I was like, okay, it's time to meet him. And so I did. And from that point until 2020, all of our communication was done internally. I wasn't channeling verbally at that point yet. And he taught me how to work with energy, and specifically the expansion principle, which I've written about, and we have a modality called the expansion principle. And we've trained over 50 practitioners all over the world to utilize this modality to help people heal. And where EP is different is that you're healing at the seed, and you're helping. As you do that, what happens is you timeline shift, and you shift possibilities, and you shift potentialities, and the energy that you have to work with is quite different. And a lot of times when you're working with things, you'll heal the roots, or you're healing the leaves, or but when you go to the very beginning of something, the preconception kind of thing, you're really shifting things monumentally. And we bring this forward, and we did all that before he was even talking to everyone. And then I wrote my first book in 2020, and when I was writing my book, my publisher said, well, can't you just have him talk to us like Esther does? I'm like, oh, well, yeah, probably. So I hit record on my own at home, and I'm like, okay, so talk to the people. And the first few times it was very clunky. It was very slow. It was like this staccato kind of like, it's a lot of energy. It's big energy. And I worked with him for a long time, just attuning my own energy to match his. And so for those of you who have worked with beings or who are aware of that kind of work, beings that aren't of this dimensional reality have a tendency to have a vibration that's much, 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 much larger than ours. And so there is like a titration effect that has to occur. And like even angels are like giant, and like the energy is just, it'll blast you. And so really titering to that and attuning to that is really a necessary thing I have found. And so we did that, and we started, that's where that all started, was channeling in that way. And then that was in January. And then in March, of course, we had, in the United States, 2 months of lockdown and all of that experience. So by the end of April, there was a lot of really interesting timeline shifting that was happening. And you and I talked about how our sense of time has changed in the last 5 years quite a bit. And there is a lot of, we're much more aware of timelines than we ever were, especially sensitive people, and how you move from one to the other and all those sorts of things. And I have courses that I teach on that kind of thing, because time is just a marvelous thing to come into relationship with in a greater way. And we did our first online public experience. I was like, okay, we're gonna have people talk to people, and people ask questions. And then I think by the end of that year, we were doing it every month. And a year later, we were doing it twice a month. So we do that twice a month. We have something called the Bardo experience, where we online do it's 2 hours twice a month, and we do this connection lecture where we all share what we're noticing in the ethers, what's going on, and a free flow lecture. And then the second half is we ask questions. And what's really interesting is it's so different than going to, and I love readings. I love intuitive readings. I love all of that sort of thing, and that's beautiful. What's neat about this is the experience is very much about becoming. And we are in a state of expansion all the time. Our natural state is one of expansion. And we are in this state of becoming. And so it's less of using it like a crutch and more of utilizing it as a guiding post for our next evolution and our next step. And so that's really what I like to look at it as, is that you're here asking questions, not because you don't know the answers, because you do know the answers, but because human beings do best when we bounce our energy off of each other and other things and other beings, and are in communication and communion with each other. And we know ourselves most oftentimes in reflection back, however that might look, whether we receive a reflection that's like, oh, that's not what I am, or oh yes, that's what I am, and so that's very much the place I like to look at guidance and all that sort of thing. Is not that we're giving our power away, but in fact we're utilizing our power and asking for where we would like assistance and help. Today when I was getting ready to come, I needed to get a box of books down from our office closet. And my hands sometimes aren't the strongest. And I went to grab it, and it felt, I don't remember how heavy it is. So I stopped and got my partner. I said, I need help getting it down. So we got it down. And it was that moment of like, we're supposed to ask for help. That there's not a weakness to say, oh, I'd like assistance in this. That's it. It's that simple. But it's hard, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So we're here. That is the short and the long story of it all. Thank you so much for being here, like I said before. And what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and I'll ask you, do we have any questions or thoughts that we'd like to share before we start? Questions? No. How many of you have experienced channeling before? Okay. You have. You've been here. Oh, well, let's ask that. How many people channel themselves? We did have a channel last time here. You go in and out of it, or a different experience there. Beautiful.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'd like some general guidance of what is the focus for this year for us?
Yes.
A little more, rather than just expansion, but maybe specific, a little more specific.
Yes. And so let's ask that question for our group, right? Rather than just, and maybe anyone that's tuning in.
Yeah.
That's a vibrational match for hearing the message, and not just globally, because if we were to ask globally what's our focus, that might be a little different
But that would be good.
than our group. I love that. Yeah. Yes. And I do invite you to ask a question of your own if you'd like one as well. So awesome. So when I start, he'll say that we can begin. Elizabeth, if you wouldn't mind asking him that question once we start, and then we'll go from there. And then when he's done with that global one, it's actually so perfect. What we'll do is then we'll go to our numbers, yeah? And so we'll assign numbers now, yes? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes? Okay. Well, that's perfect. A nice little
This is the
circle.
thing about the numbers. I was in the restroom. What is numbers?
Yes, I'll tell you. So what we're going to be doing, because I'm doing the channeling on my own, and so that I don't have to go in and out, what we're doing is we're assigning numbers, and what we'll start with the global. You'll ask him the global, and then when it's complete, he'll ask you, is that complete? And so if anyone has questions based on that, community question, feel free to ask. And the way we'll do that is, I can't see you, so you all decide who speaks and can go ahead. So if you have someone has something to say, then just go ahead, and we can expand, because his answer may be one that sparks somebody to say, oh, well, what, this, right?
So you say your number.
Not necessarily, because it'll just be part of our community conversation, and so you can say like, oh, you said you want us to focus on movement. Can you expand on what movement means for all of us, right? Because maybe he's not specific about movement, but he says, whatever. Does that kind of make sense? So if you have questions and you're like, want to know more, feel free to ask at that time in that part of it. And then once we're complete with that part, what we'll do is we'll move into the numbers, and he'll then say, okay, number 3, right? And then number 3 would ask their question, and then there may be a dialogue. And so if there's a dialogue, go ahead and ask, and he may say, how does that, or isn't that right? Or he'll say something, perhaps. Sometimes there's a dialogue. And in that dialogue, what's happening is energy is opening. And so one of the primary things that both Simon and I operate on is sovereignty. And that, we're sovereign by arriving here and asking for guidance. And then there's also these layers of how much information you want opened up. And so in that dialogue, there's that opening. And so I find that even whether I'm channeling or I'm doing intuitive or I'm treating somebody in my acupuncture practice, like wherever it is, or just in communication with a person, there's that energy opening up of how far we go. And for anyone who is intuitively inclined, that's kind of what we're doing. Just because we know something doesn't mean we spill all the beans right up front. There's this beautiful exchange that should happen of sovereign permission from the other person that opens the energy and opens the energy and opens the energy, or closes it. It's like, oh, that's enough. That's all they need to know right now, right? So that's sometimes what happens with the dialogue. And then he will ask you if you're complete, and if you are, then we'll move on to the next number. Yeah. And we will assign you timekeeper. Is that okay, Elizabeth?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And so what that means is, I know we have an hour and a half here together, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can just play with what feels good, Elizabeth, with time-wise, and
So like 7:30, is that?
that's perfect for me, yes. Because I am not aware. When I'll do private sessions, when I do them online, it's different because I block off time and I don't need to worry about it. But when I've done them at locations where we have the ability, where we have a closed room where we can do them, they're usually 20 to 30 minutes. And so the only way to time it, I found, like with the phone timer, it's so obstructive. It's like so loud, and then I have to it's just it doesn't feel very good. And so what I'll have people do is you have to be timekeeper. You have to be the person that's aware of the time, because I do not know, and I cannot feel it. Because sometimes it feels like it's been 5 minutes and it's been 45, and sometimes it feels like 45 and it's been about 3.5. So, yeah, it's different. Okay, we're feeling good? Yeah? Okay, do we all have questions? Do we have questions on how to formulate our questions?
Yeah, I just don't even know, I've never done something like this. So
Yeah.
just ask any question, or how to
Yep.
formulate that.
So would you like to share what yours is? You and I talked about,
Oh, sure. You know, because this is a big year for me, for a lot of reasons. Anyway, as I was walking, I thought, okay, question, how do I formulate my question? And so the download was, what is the best way that I could take care of myself so that I stay fully present this year? So, that's my question. Yeah.
It could be about anything that you want more about, more expansion.
Last year, when I came, I had broken my foot. So I asked, was like, what's going on with my foot?
I recall that.
And it was actually really cool. The answer was pretty, it was great.
Cool.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah.
So with
breaking
theme.
your foot, but the answer,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
That's really cool.
Right.
I don't remember this. Oh, the story, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, and the history of it, I think, and the energetics of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, then,
Yeah, so it could be if you have a business, if you have a certain sector of your life, if you have an idea, a project. Some people ask about an area they're working on healing. Some people, I mean, there's just so much that we could ask on, but yeah, you'll be guided to what. Yeah. What's really fun is that, see how you like how I get excited? What's really fun is that oftentimes you'll ask one thing, you think, oh, and then someone else will ask something so similar, and the response is so exactly what you need to hear, even though it's like, but this is somebody else's life, but that's my medicine today. I needed that.
Yeah,
right?
that's the connection of the
Mhm.
group.
Yep, it really is. And putting all the different pieces together. So like I said, it is recorded and it does get put on YouTube, which is really fun because even other people who watch, who don't even know us, will receive something from the messages. And so you'll be able to go back and hear your messages again, which will be fun. But also other people will get the magic of you being brave enough to come and brave enough to ask. So it's really beautiful. All right, we're feeling good. Okay, so I think most of you, yes, I believe it's your first time. You were here last time. Oh, you seem very familiar to me. Oh, how interesting. Okay, so we have 2 new people. So I close my eyes and then he talks, and that's that. Oh, that's what I feel like I'm missing. A blanket, which I don't need because I'm warm enough, but I usually put a blanket.
Do you want a scarf?
Maybe. Yeah, I keep feeling like I need a weight of something on me.
Cozy?
Yes, I love being cozy. It's my favorite.
A lap blanket is really nice.
It is. It is. It's funny.
I was gonna offer this.
I was like, you have your
If
shit.
she can't find what she's
Right.
looking for, offer you.
I typically bring a big, and I'm warm enough and I have the tea, but it's, oh, isn't that lovely?
That's a short outfit. So important to me.
I think we'd all look good in it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, see you in a little while.
Mhm.
Oh yes, we may be beginning. You have our group question today, Elizabeth, yes?
Yes, I welcome some.
Yes.
It would be nice for us to hear what our group intention and maybe purpose is for this next coming year. Those specifics on that.
Yes, what a beautiful thing to be asking the purpose. That word is such a beautiful word, as is the word intention, but the purpose is that connection to yourself. Your greatest purpose is always to have a deep connection to yourself, and the way that you do that can be unique, yes? It can be a matter of understanding what it is your lineage is. It can be an understanding of what it is that you enjoy most in your life. It can be an understanding of unveiling more of yourself, yes? What your purpose is specifically for this year has to do with allowing for there to be a reunification of the energies, yes? And we were asking specifically for this group and all those that are drawn to hear this message that having to do with the reunification of energetics. And what we're meaning by that is that many of the energetics on this world have been frayed, yes? They have been almost intentionally split apart. And what we are inviting you all to be doing, a main part of the focus and a main part of the intention and purpose for this year, is to be doing your part in the reunification of those energies. And an aspect of that is via finding your individual joy, by finding your individual bravery, by finding your individual expression of self most fully, yes?
Beautiful.
What I may be inviting you all to be doing is to be holding that this information, this message that we are giving to you, to take a moment to bring it into yourself from the midpoint, yes? And bringing it all the way through to your midpoint, to the center of the center. And in your center of your center, you ask, what do these instructions look like for me? Yes? What does this then in a tangible, material way, yes, relate for myself? And you will be given the answer, yes? Is there anything further for this?
No, I think that's good.
Yes, we may be continuing then with the number 2.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I actually have 2 questions. The first question has to do with this coming year. How can I best take care of myself with all the stuff that's happening around me, and so that I can stay present and not lose myself in that? And then the second question is, I feel like someone is here with me, and I don't know who it is. So.
Yes, you'd like for you to be calling her Sarah. Do you know Sarah?
No.
Yes. She is quite beautiful.
What? Great. I feel her presence.
Yes, she is a fairy-like presence. There have been a 7 and 14 times that she has come forward for you throughout your experience here on the earth as yourself, yes?
Well, thank you, Sarah.
Yes, and she is part of your answer, yes? She's part of your answer. You ask how it is that you may most care for yourself, and nurturance is quite important. And if you allow, she can guide you to that nurturance, yes?
Okay, great.
And we would also like for you to be knowing that having a physical nurturance of yourself, all the physical activities are quite important, and you have gotten quite good at the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects, yes? We would like to be inviting you to the physical aspects as well, yes? To be taking materials and rubbing them on your skin, such as oils or lotions, yes? Finding care with yourself, having there to be touch on your own body, your touch on your own skin, yes? Allowing for your cells to absorb love as you are applying it, yes?
Oh, great. Okay.
Yes. And this can be utilized with any intention, with any energetic that you would like to be infusing in yourself in a greater way. You do this when you are applying something, a material to yourself of some kind, yes? Whether it is a scrub or an oil or any sort of thing onto your physical form, yes? You may be thinking about, I would like my cells to be infused with peace today, yes? And this has peace today in it, and you allow yourselves and you invite yourselves to open themselves up to be penetrated with the energetics of peace, yes?
Beautiful. That sounds like a wonderful practice for this year.
Yes, that could be quite helpful for you.
Yeah, thanks.
And we might invite you to be writing it somewhere and putting it somewhere where you may remind yourself, because sometimes 3/4 of the way or 1/3 of the way, and we forget, yes, as humans.
Yeah, that's me. Sometimes I do forget.
Yes, and you would like to be remembering, so writing it down and putting it on a place or several places, yes.
Okay.
Is that a completion at this time?
Thank you, yes.
Yes, we may be continuing. And we would like to be continuing with the number 5, yes?
Thank you. How do I release the obstacles that keep me from living my soul's purpose?
There are multiple answers to this, yes? You would like to be removing them, yes?
Yes.
Yes, by having the awareness of that is a part of it. There was once upon a time that you did not have the knowing or the awareness that you had a soul purpose. Is that correct? We would like to be reminding you of that.
Yes.
It is important for you to be remembering how far you have come to the point that you are now, so that you may look at it less as a block and more of a pathway forward. There's always an unveiling and an unfolding in the experience that you are having, yes?
Yeah.
And perhaps it's less that there is a block and more that there is some tension between yourself and the individual that you are becoming, yes?
Yeah.
And because there are certain habits and there are certain ways of being and there are certain agreements and there's even a few people that would be affected by you becoming the person that will be fulfilling the purpose, yes?
Correct.
So it is really a matter of allowing that tension to subside, to tune into, if you know that is your purpose, and that means you will be fulfilling it no matter what, yes? Because when you have set your mind to something, do you not complete it always?
Yeah.
Yes. And in knowing that, then you know it is an inevitability that you become that version of yourself, yes?
Yeah.
And if that is an inevitability, then you can lessen the tension. And knowing that everyone else that is affected by it will be quite fine, because the greatest truth that there is when each individual operates from their own soul wellness, yes? Operating from choices and operations from that are of the soul wellness, then what happens is that positively influences everyone that is around them. They may not like that, but that is quite different than whether or not it would harm them or not, yes?
Right.
It is of benefit, even though there are times when individuals do not like that, as we have said, yes? So what we are inviting you to do is to recognize that it isn't so much a block, but it is that tension of your becoming, yes? It is, you are walking on a tightrope to it. And would you want a tightrope to be lax, or would you like it to be tight?
Tight.
Yes. And so perhaps it isn't so much an issue that you notice this. It is quite all right to be noticing it, because there was a point in time in which you did not notice these things.
Yeah.
And in the awakening that you longed for so greatly, you are now in that, yes?
Yeah.
And now you have an awareness that you get to move towards more and more and more. And knowing that when you are given a grand vision as the vision that you have been given, it doesn't happen in a moment.
No.
It unfolds itself, and that is what is happening, yes? So trust that and trust yourself, yes?
Yes.
Is there anything further with that question?
No. Thank you.
Yes, you're quite welcome. You may be moving to the number 4.
Hi Simon, thank you for being here. I was wondering if there's anything general that you would like to share with me that you think I'm ready to hear.
Yes, it is quite time for you to let your hair down. It is quite time for you to let your hair down, for you to allow yourself to be in the fullness of the beauty and the wonder of what you are. Yes? That it isn't necessary any longer to withhold yourself from yourself. It is time to take your shoes off. It is time to dance in the ring. Yes? And when you wonder how to do that, you know quite how to do that, and you are safe in doing that, yes?
Thank you.
Is there anything further that you would like to be asking with that?
No, thank you.
Yes. I'd like to be inviting the number 6 to be speaking with us.
Thank you. Hello and hi. So, I would love, let's see. It's like, yes, my mind is going in all these different directions about which way to go, but the theme and the topic is really about my vision and my sight. And I've been going through a lot of operations and things about my sight, and I'm at an okay place. But what do I need to hear today to bring more clarity and to improve my vision on all levels, physical sight as well as my inner sight?
Yes, you are being invited to connect to the mycelial network of understanding and vision, yes? It is of seeing beyond the seeing. It isn't necessary to lose the physical sight, but there are times in order to see more clearly we must do so, yes? There isn't a harm either way. And coming to the surrender of that there is no harm either way, it will grant you quite a lot of wellness and physical acuity. But it must be done for the sake of that being correct, not because of what you will gain, yes? Simply because the surrender into it all being as it is, yes? When we are comfortable with an outcome regardless of the outcome, yes? Yes, there's trepidation there for you.
Yes, it was fascinating to hear what you were sharing with me, and could you explain further what you mean about what you shared in terms of the mycelium sight and
Yes.
this happening in order for my vision to expand in other ways is sort of how I heard it, but I would love to get a deeper understanding.
Yes, it also has to do with the fear of reliance on all the other beings, yes. Is there a bit of trepidation having to do with that?
Well, this whole experience on this level of looking at getting the treatment that I got for my sight involved a lot of asking for help.
Yes.
Absolutely. And trepidation of other beings is meaning it could be in any forms.
Yes, physical human beings and otherwise.
Yeah, I guess there still is. You got that. And it's in my voice. I feel it.
Yes. There are several things for you to be knowing is that you are an attraction factor for beings of benefit to you. And if you are having that vibration of beings that are of benefit to you, there isn't, you've gotten quite clear on this. It is all over your field, the clarity of that. And if that is true, then there is less to be afraid of, is there not? In which you can surrender into the knowingness of that clarity and that attraction point. Yes. And the other aspect you would like for us to be continuing to have a discussion about the mycelial network of energetic sight. Yes.
Yes.
It is very much like a mycelial network. If you look that up, you can see the way it branches out. Yes, all over the earth. Yes, and that is in an interstitial way. The way the space in between the space of all beings on this particular earth are connected to one another, but in a lot of ways, the way in which all consciousness is related to each other. Yes, the way that information is passed through is very much like a mycelial network, and it also looks a bit like dendrites of within the body. Yes. And that there are pulse points. What if each of you are a pulse point sending out information? Yes, and your connection to that and your ability to see things in that way. What if you could just flip it on? What if you could just see it that way? What if you could allow yourself to have that transmutation of information and energetics? Yes. And this is also akin to what we spoke about last year, having to do with your legacy. Yes.
I'm not clear on that part. No.
Yes, having to do with the way in which what you are leaving to the world around you. Yes.
You referring to something specific?
And all of it.
Yeah, right. When I laugh, it means I have an understanding. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it will all begin to weave itself together in a greater way. Yes. But it's very much for all beings in all situations, when there is a surrender into the outcome, an inevitability of what it is that you will be on the other side of it, and not having a needing to own the way in which you get there. Yes. Yes. What you most want is to be well. So allow whatever that means to bring you to that. Yes. That is the sticky point.
Reminds me of the whole idea of also my desire just to connect more out. I always want to be outside first before doing things inside.
Yes.
Nature I'm referring to.
Yes. There's less static outside. Yes. Which means you can send your pulses more clearly. Yes. You can sense them and notice them more clearly.
And this ability to be able to center on those pulses, what would that open up?
Everything. And maybe continuing to the number one. Yes.
Thank you. I guess my question is, I've spent the last couple of years like searching for I guess a new career, but along the way like learning all about this world, I guess called the metaphysical world, and seeking different ways I guess that I'm to participate in it, but I don't really know. I've tried different certifications and it didn't seem like it really worked for me, and now I'm just not really sure why am I learning all of this stuff? Why do I have all these books? Why do I have all these workshops? What is my purpose with this information? I feel like I'm supposed to teach people somehow, but I don't really know how I'm supposed to do that when I am a 9-to-5 office worker. So if you have any clarification or help around that, I would appreciate it.
Yes, having to do with your identity of self is the number one thing you want to be looking at. Yes. What are the I ams that you are, yes?
Yeah.
That you are a being above all else. You just happen to be engaged in occupation that has a structure to it, yes? That has a particular structure and particular energetics and particular connotations around it, yes? But it isn't who you are or what you are, yes? The limitations that are there are quite all right, but there is so much beyond that, because otherwise you would not have been awakened to what you have been awakened to, yes? You have an awareness that the information that has been brought to you is currently insufficient. There is quite a lot, but you have been doing it in a way that you feel that it should have been sufficient, and why are you not satiated at this point, yes?
Yes.
Why is it there that there's still a hunger for more?
Yes.
Yes. At what point will the wolf stop being hungry?
Yes.
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 Do I just continue and continue on forever? To what end? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it nourishing you is the question.
Yes.
So we continue to eat if it is nourishing us, do we not?
Yeah.
Yes. If we were to say, I have eaten enough breakfasts in my life, I would like to stop eating breakfasts now. I only eat snack every other day because I would no longer like to be having any food. Yes. If it is nourishing you, what you are also asking is to what end?
Yes.
And that is the most important part, is there are particular beliefs that were brought to you as a young child that are in conflict with the idea that you are feeling that what you are doing is important.
Yes.
And that is what needs to be healed at this time, yes? Because that is where you struggle the most. Because how could I possibly be this important that I feel that I am if I was told that I was not, yes? If I was taught a certain way, how is this feeling inside me that this is important, that I must continue? And what it means is that there has to be a realignment of your identity of whom you are, which is different what you were taught that you are, what you know in your cells that you are, yes? And we are inviting you at this time into that identity of whom you actually know you are. This is why we began the conversation with you, with the identification piece of who you are and whom you say I am, yes? We would like for you to be going home and writing a list of all the things that you are not. And we would like for you to write a list of all the things that you are. Yes? Because you know quite clearly who you are and who you are not. You know quite clearly all your potentialities, and if you choose to awaken them and to activate them, you can do that quite easily, yes? And that you know that within your beingness. Yes? Okay. And the answers will continue to unveil themselves in a more tangible way. We know oftentimes a bit of what we are speaking about feels a bit nebulous.
Yes.
But what will continue to happen for you is that the pieces, the way in which you share, and the way in which you teach, and the way in which you connect with others will continue to unfold itself. What is most important is that there is more information to gather at this time.
Okay.
And you are walking in the correct path. And it is not for nothing. It is not merely a collection of certifications. They are all weaving themselves together, and each piece is significant to the next piece, yes? And some of those pieces are for you and for your own healing and for your own awakening of self. And some of them are to bring you on to the next thing. And some of them will be all woven together, yes? Yes.
Thank you.
You are quite welcome. We have come at this time to the number 3, yes?
So, I have so many questions. Which one? Well, this is pretty specific to me. Right now, I'm going through a health issue that has to do with something I've dealt with in the past with hair loss, alopecia. But this is more extreme than it's ever been. And I'm wondering if you could share what might be the root of that that I'm not seeing? Not just from a physical point of view, but from where the, what is this helping me to learn, or,
Yes.
and the word that keeps coming is something around bravery that you said at the beginning
Yes.
of the session for our purpose as a group.
Yes.
So if you could expand on that.
Yes, having to do with the energy of the kidney or with the fear. Yes, and having to do with that moving into the energy of terror as well. Yes, those moments that you feel, what is it? What will it be? And not about your hair, but about the world around you. Yes, it is draining your kidney energy, which is affecting your crown. Yes, and your hair is your crown. Yes. And it is quite clearly allowing you to have an awareness, and this is why you are resonant to the idea of bravery, because bravery dances quite well with fear. It knows how to augment its relationship with fear. It knows how to feel it and move. And it knows how to allow it to dissipate from the body, because that is what needs to occur for you at this time, is allow for the fear to remove itself from your body. And if it needs to exist, it can exist outside your field, and you may talk to it. I'm afraid and it is here, and I can speak to that fear, but it does not need to drain my energy any longer. Yes? I can sit and stand in my warriorship with fear and say, what do you need now? Because while I am willing to entertain you, I am not willing for you to own me. Yes.
Very helpful.
Yes. Is there anything further at this time? As a group, are there any other questions we would like to be asking?
I'd like to ask a question about climate change
Yes.
and climate chaos. And so much of what's transpiring all around us is really out of our control. But we have an obligation and really a responsibility to sort of adapt to, our surroundings. And so my question has to do with, what can we do individually and collectively to either mitigate it or to get through it in a way that's with awareness and that's helpful? Is there a meditation or a prayer or song or I don't know, subscribe to Ashland News and get, and get up to date on what's happening in the city, or, what the city's addressing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tuning into one's ability to adapt to change. Yes. Tuning into one's ability to adapt to what is necessary. And this has to do with so many different aspects of this particular question, because it is, when you tune into the ability to change, you can tune into the ability to do the things that would be necessary to help support the earth in a greater way. Speaking to the earth and asking her, what do you need? Because she is the one who influences the climate, and the climate influences the earth. But she herself is in relationship with all herself around her, yes? The weather is not separate from the earth itself. It is part of her, yes?
Yes.
So
and so are we.
Yes,
Right.
yes. And so you ask her, what do I need? What do you need? But the adaptability to change, and what that is also meaning, it means that you have within your DNA the ability to jump and leap in your adaptation. And that means far greater than what beings have any concept at this time. Because there is not the documentation within the historical record of the way in which human beings can adapt to that level. And human beings can. And that is where there doesn't need to be as much fear, because human beings are quite amazing in their ability to continue and the will to survive is quite strong, and it can at this time can do so in a beautiful way, in a loving way. And the more that you connect with the earth, the more that is done in a loving way. Yes, the more that you come from the vibration of love rather than the vibration of fear. This is quite important. Where can you shift from one to the other? Where can you know if when you are inside the frequency of love, you are knowing that it doesn't matter the physical wherewithal that is going outside, whether it is political, whether it's religious, whether it is socioeconomic, anything. Because individuals have the ability to adapt, to change, and to adapt to one's environment, and to adapt their behaviors to suit what is necessary for the earth to be a thriving paradise. Yes. What are you willing to believe is possible? Are you willing to allow for timelines? And what we mean by timelines in this particular case is the rate at which change is possible. Yes. Yes. Is there anything further with that question?
No.
A bit further is understanding the connection to the seasons can be quite helpful for all beings to be doing so, and to be understanding that that is also changing, and the polarity of the earth is changing, and the polarity of beings is changing, and understanding that is also quite helpful. The way in which the seasons express themselves are changing, the way in which they orient themselves are changing, yes. And it's quite all right for this to do so, yes. Because the vibrational shifts that have been occurring on this planet also are supporting that to be in a positive way, yes. Is there anything further that we would like to be discussing? We would like to be offering you an energetic transmission at this time. Would we all like to be receiving that?
Yes.
If you would not like to be, you simply put your hands across like this, yes, and we will not be receiving it. But if you would like it, you just open your hands. That is what we'll be doing, yes. And for those of you wanting to participate, we would like for you to begin to notice your breath and take nice, deep breaths with us. As we begin to move the energies throughout the room and throughout the space and throughout our spaces, you begin to notice a beautiful golden light coming down, sprinkling down all around you, around our space, around this book corner, around the store of the sound piece, around this corner of this block on Ashland, yes? And we're allowing these energetics to gently come into our sphere as we would like and as we allow, yes? And this beautiful expansion principle energetics are gently coming down, almost in slow motion, absorbing into each and every cell, coating our field, coating our body, coating all the tissues, coating all the organs, coating each and every cell. And maybe breathe into that in and out. As we at this time allow anything and everything that no longer serves, that is no longer of benefit to us, to gently fall away. For it to fall away and gently be transmuted at this time. For it to become the highest alchemy point that it can become. And this beautiful golden light is allowing for us, now that there is more space, for us to be everything we are intended to be this year, for us to tune into the identities that are most beneficial for us to tune into the decisions and the choices and the movements throughout our experience this year of the highest benefit of ourselves and those around us. one more nice deep breath as we anchor it all in. And if you have closed your eyes, you may open them at this time. We thank you very much for being here with us. It is quite beautiful. That was interesting. It felt like super slow motion. It felt like it doesn't normally go that slow. It was really fascinating. Hi, how are we?
Good.
How did we do with our responses? Did they land well?
Yep. Yes.
You're like, I don't know, I'll get back to you.
Like you
It
said,
was
there were questions from others. There were parts of it that
Yeah.
applied to you as well. It's fascinating. It's really cool.
I love that.
Funny how that always happens. Every time I do a talk to myself, that's what the person talking always says, well, what's wonderful about if you're brave enough to share in the group, that a group gives, everybody in the group gives something back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It happens every time. I just always do.
And that's true however it is that we're involving ourselves, whether it's a class or it's an interaction at the grocery store or it's going to the park when you didn't think you were going to go to the park. It's anything, like wherever you present your beingness, you're putting your energy there and it has impact, whether it's on the deer that saw you really, or whatever it is, there's an impact. It's all important. Our choices do matter, and the things that we're doing and how we operate and how we're moving, it's all significant. Yeah. Wonderful. So did we have any thoughts or questions or clarifications we had on our questions? I know sometimes people are feeling good.
Yeah, I felt like mine was, I got a few ahas, but then I also got a few like, what?
Yeah, talk to me about that.
What the hell are you talking about? And wait a minute, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And the words that were used, and
Yeah.
it just kind of felt like it was rippling a lot of different things, almost as if my forming of the question was similar to that process.
Ah.
Interesting,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So something to do with the mycelium
Yeah.
network,
Yeah.
related to sight,
Yeah.
related to
I feel like last time you had really big answers too, and you were also like, "What?
I don't know if I wasn't here last time.
You weren't?
No.
That's
No.
phenomenal
Was
because
not
so
me.
it was. That's so interesting,
I might have been some other time, but I know I
right?
wasn't here
On
last year.
on a different timeline.
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. That is just so interesting. So is that something that happens for you where you get answers that are a lot bigger than what you think you'll get?
No.
You typically, no. Okay.
No.
No. All
No.
right.
No. I guess it's clearly no.
Ah, yeah. So you usually know what to expect.
No. Not that either. Not that
Yeah,
either.
somewhere in between.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like with the whole idea of sort of a surrender, the word surrender came up to whatever is, and allow whatever wellness is needed to come through. But the idea of going through the process with my vision is related to opening up more to who I truly am, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm just talking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that becoming, it's being comfortable with wherever we walk, And that's the biggest discomfort of being human. We want to control everything because it's, what if this thing happens? Okay, so what if that thing happens?
Yeah.
You know, I was talking earlier, I think it was just the three of us at the time before everyone else had arrived. And I talked a little bit about my life and how, you know, I had, for so much of my life, I had this fear of my husband at the time dying young.
Mm.
And then it was, there was just a lot of that, and like also fear of change and fear of movement and just all of that, and just quite fascinating. And at the end of the day, after 20 years, I completed a marriage for a lot of reasons that was not working. I don't know if we need to tell all of YouTube. I guess I've told the podcast people, so I might as well tell YouTube too, right? But the reason I share that is because it was so interesting, because after sharing 20 years with a person and now to be absolute strangers where there isn't communication at all, he did die. Right at the age I thought that he would.
Yeah.
And I knew the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so afraid. I had this terror around this change when it was the thing that set me free. Where I was trapped the whole time and let myself create this illusion.
I can relate. I just got over an illusion I created, a story I created for a few years.
Oh,
I
it's fun
finally
when we do that.
broke it,
Hmm.
and I'm like, oh my god.
It's like a spell.
Yes, it is.
And I mean, we could do like a whole class on that, honestly. Which maybe we'll do.
self-imposed
Sometime.
casting of the spell. I
Yeah.
did it, and it's gone, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit more to it than just self-imposed.
Yes.
Because I do think there's a
Gotta be.
lot of matrixy type of energetics that do have a little bit of influence on the things we choose,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that's the really interesting part about it, is that we can be influenced to sovereignly choose something that's maybe not of our benefit,
Yeah.
which is the most fascinating part and can be the most harmful. Is that when we actively choose something that is not of our benefit, but and still we walk there, right? And so the whole point of me telling you this particular story is that to now be in the place of like freedom and beauty and so much of lightness, so much lightness, and at every level. I had in 2022, that whole year was really intense for me physically and health wise, and I was, I guess, I'm so confused. What year are we in? That was 2023, because we're in 25 now. So 2023, the year I turned 40, and I had all of this health stuff going on to the point where I could barely walk. I couldn't turn the doorknob, like all of these things going on. And this was right before I ended my marriage. And then after that, you see me moving around, you know, and I have some things still, but in general, I can get up off the floor. I can do all of these things. And a lot of it was that lightness that has occurred for me. And the thing that we're the most afraid of, like, it's oftentimes has no substance to it. It's like that was the path forward. I'm in this such a loving, deep, caring relationship that I longed for my whole life since I was a little girl, and throughout my marriage, longing for something that this person couldn't be because they weren't that person. And to now be like, oh, there you are. You know? And it's just a fascinating thing of just like letting go. And that's what that surrender really means, is not so much the white flag surrender, but this full bodied, I catch myself, and all the I catch myself means, because I catch myself means you catch me, she catches me. Do you know? Every way. We're all each other in that way. And so it's that kind of surrender, and that what if we don't need to control any of it?
Yeah.
Because there's so much pain and gripping and gripping and gripping the things that aren't ours to grip, and we want it to be a certain way. It's like I say, sometimes it's like letting go of control and realizing what our captaincy is of. Like, what are we the captain of? You know, if we're here on this ship and we're trying to, you can't, like, you know, it's not the way it works. What do we have agency over of our own self? And just this, you know, hands open, arms open, just like,
Yeah.
you know, And that's very much, it's uncomfortable for the idea that he's saying that you could lose your sight. And you also will be fine. And you could keep your sight and you could be fine. And you could have 55 new levels of sight and you could be fine.
Yeah.
And not the could be, but you will be. Is that there is innumerable possibility for any one of us. And it will all be quite all right. And that's so uncomfortable.
I wanted to thank you for the you know, the image of having the fear come, you know, removing it from the inside and having a relationship. You know, that was so helpful, and that somehow the fear dances really well with bravery, you know, courage or something. That whole that is beautiful. It was like a painting, you know, and it's like, wow, that's.
And then it's like you don't have to hold on to the fear. It's like out here and you're just talking.
It's
to
a
it.
beautiful image,
Yeah, it
isn't
was
it?
really
Right.
That's good for me because I'm very visual.
Mhm.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I think, wow.
Oh,
So
I
that's
could do that.
works right away. Yes, and it was just like, hey, how's it going? You know, but when it's inside, it eats away.
Oh,
It's almost like a
It
it's
literally
like
it
it's
eats
like
away.
a moth, you know, eating
Yes.
your sweaters. You know, it's
Yeah.
a bug.
Yes.
You know,
Like
and
a little
Fear
moth
will
flying around.
literally eat your
It can
tissues.
eat you
It will.
up.
It does.
right.
Yeah, it does.
But really, when it's on the
yeah.
outside, it's like, how's it going? What's happening? Why, you know, is something going on today? And
What do you want me to
and you
do?
can have a different relationship with that fear.
Yeah. There's a book called My Friend Fear, and it's really beautiful. It's this watercolor book, and it's just a really lovely. It's one you probably want to get for the shop. It's just quite lovely. I think I had it once upon a time, and I believe I gave it away to a patient or something. It was just really good. But yeah, I think it was a while ago, so who knows if it
Do
is
you know
or
the
not.
author at all?
I don't right now. I'll look it up, and if I see it,
It is-
you'll
I
probably
can
look it too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that concept, right, of like having it be that it's not the bad guy. And none really of the emotions and those experiences are the bad guy. If we personify them, sometimes it helps us. Sometimes personifying things doesn't help us, but sometimes it really does when you make it something separate from you, because, you know, I am not sad. I'm not sadness. I'm Alexis.
Yeah, right.
But if I
Feels
now,
like it, that makes sense.
yeah, but if you personify sadness, this is sadness. It's no longer an I am. It's its own. It's not, you know, it's not mine anymore. Yeah, it's an experience you're having, exactly. And that's the most important thing. Like any experience that we're having, remembering that it's an experience, because that's part of what happens is that we think we are any aspect of ourselves. Like, I am my sight, you're not your sight. And I deeply understand how uncomfortable it is but you're being invited for this to sort of dismantle your, this is very strange to say, but your connection to your physicality.
Oh, I was gonna say okie dokie.
And to really be aware of your beingness on like a cosmic consciousness level in such a way that you know who you are so completely outside of your physical beingness in this incarnation.
That's very helpful, actually. Because over the last several years, I've had some experiences, and I'm like, why did I hear that? Why did I know that? Like, yeah, and that's so what you just said, just is weaving things together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that I felt were very important, but yet I put it over here like someone would fare.
Yeah.
Versus, well, that's actually maybe a pulse point, or maybe like it came my way, and that's okay, and not to be afraid of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just an experience.
Right.
And to remember too, like that we're so much more than any one part of ourselves, any one identity that we are, and even really like we're more than even the individual being that we all have incarnated each as. When you remember that, when you really tap into the innumerable experiences that your soul is and has simultaneously while you're you, woo, that's power. When you remember, it's like, this is just a piece of it. There's so much more. I'm fine. This is okay. If I have the ability to be innumerable versions of any, like, this is, I gotta let it go. What am I doing? I don't even have a concept of what's happening. This is,
Yeah, as I was sitting here, even hearing messages for others, and right before mine, there's this softness around my eyes.
Yeah.
There's this gentleness, there's this tearing, there's this maybe love or something gentle.
Yeah.
That is, I'm starting to open up more too. So that's very good.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
So very good. Anything else we want to touch on? How was yours for you? How did that one
Good.
end?
It was good. It's I've seen different readers throughout the past couple of years or had readings, and I feel like I get the same answer. So it's kind of funny for me because I'm like more of like just enjoy our during the experience. So, but it was very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's it's funny because I did that. I had that same experience for a long time before, probably for about 10 years before I started to put it all together.
Right.
And and then I've had another 9 years since then where, and honestly, actually more than 10 years, because I remember being a little kid, people telling me things, right? And so it's the same thing. And it, I used to think, oh, well, everybody gets told that. And then I started realizing not everybody gets told the same thing.
Right.
And I remember when I first learned human design and Gene Keys. So I found out both at the same time, and when I had a reading, it was both at the same time. And now looking back, it was very Gene Key heavy, but it was both things. And if you don't know what Gene Keys and human design are, please go home and look it up immediately. You're welcome for the rabbit hole. It is. Or do you know?
I know what human design is. I've had a reading, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
You, I think, will absolutely love Gene Keys. It is a contemplation. It is a love affair with poetry of the divine cosmic consciousness of expression. We'll eventually do a human design and Gene Key class. But what's really fun about Gene Keys in particular is that it is a personal journey contemplation. And so you, just like astrology, you put your day and time and it gives you this thing. And there's 4 main keys, and you go through this experience, this genius sequence it's called, and you get to know yourself really beautifully. And what I used to think is like, oh, they tell everybody this, and it's like, oh wait, no, like, because I go read the other ones, I'm like, oh, it all matches.
Right.
And so it's such a funny thing when you are told the same thing over and over, and when you have to wait.
Yeah.
When it's long.
Right.
When it's the long game. It's really hard.
Right.
For me, something that's happened. Oh yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You could spend your life doing
You
that.
could.
Outdoor stuff.
It is soft.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an incredible experience to just let the unfolding, which is I think what a lot of it
Which
is
is
about.
tough for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm like, fine.
You could look it up
Okay.
and get a
Yeah.
U-turn.
Yeah.
From that
What's
reading.
interesting is that you haven't been given too much of a vision specifically, right?
And I got a human design.
No, I had
analysis.
years ago, I
In the
had
past.
what I felt like was
We'll say goodbye now. Bye.
But it's a lot